ただいまから岸
We will now
田内閣
begin
総理大臣と
the joint
ジ
press
ョセフ・バイ
conference
デン
by
米国大統領によ
Prime
る
Minister
共同記者
Kishida
会見を行い
and
ます。
President Joe Biden.
はじめに岸田
At the
総理から
beginning,
ご
Prime
発
Minister
言をいただ
Kishida
き、
will deliver his
続い
remarks.
てバイデン
That
大
will be
統領
followed
か
by
らご
President
発言をいた
Biden's
だきます。
remarks.
それでは岸田総理、
The
お
floor
願い
is
いた
yours,
しま
Prime
す。
Minister.
はい、バイデン大統領の、
Well, thank
米
you.
国大統領としては初めての、
We are
ご訪
immensely
日、
pleased
大変
with
嬉しく
President
思っ
Biden's
ていま
first
す。
visit to Japan as the
Joe,
President
welcome
of the
back to
United
Japan.
States.
米国は日本にとって
United States
自由、
is
民
Japan's
主主
only
義、
ally who
人権、
shares universal
法の支
values
配
of
とい
freedom,
った
democracy,
普遍的な
human
価
rights,
値
and rule
を
of
共
law.
有する我が国にとって唯一の同盟国です。日米同盟が
It goes
我が国
without
の
saying
外交安全保障
that
政策
Japan-US
の
alliance
要
is
であ
the
ることは
linchpin of
言うまでも
Japan's
ありません。
diplomatic and security
その上で
policy.
この度の
The
日米
Japan-US
首
summit
脳
this
会談
time
は
in this
2つ
context
の意味で
was more
これま
important
でに
than
なく
ever
重要であると
in
考
respect of
えてい
two
ます。
points.
一つには
For one,
現在我々
we are
がロシ
currently
アによる
faced with a
ウクライナ
crisis
侵略
that
と
shakes
い
the
う
foundation of
国際秩
international
序の
order, which
根
is
幹を揺るがす危機
Russia's
に直面
aggression
している
against
からです。
Ukraine.
法の支配に基
To
づ
defend
く
resolutely
自由で開か
free
れ
and
た
open international
国際秩序
order
を
based on
断
the
固と
rule
し
of
て
law,
守るべく、今ほど同盟国や同志
unity
国の
amongst
結束が
allies and
求められてい
like-minded
る時
countries
はあ
are
りません。
required utmost now
もう一つ
than
は
any other.
インド太平洋
Another
地域の
thing is
平和
that
と
the
繁栄
challenge
を
of
いかに確保してい
ensuring
く
peace
か
and
という
prosperity
課
of
題
the
こそ
Indo-Pacific region
国
is the
際社
most
会にとっ
important
て
strategic
最も
issue
重要
for
な
the
戦略的
international
課題であり、
community.
日米が
And
主導
Japan and the
的
United
役割
States
を
are
果たしていくこと
to
が
take on
求められている
leadership
からです。
role.
その意味で、
In this
この度
sense,
のバイデン大統領
We
の
highly
訪日
value
は、
the visit by
米国
President
の
Biden
こ
to
の地域へ
Japan
の
as
関
it
与を
powerfully
強化し
demonstrates
続け
United
る
States'
ことを
enhanced
力強く
engagement
示すも
in
のと
this
し
part of
て
the region.
高く評価します。また、
Also,
明日の日米
together
豪
with President
印首脳
Biden,
会合も
we would like to
バイデン
make
大統領
tomorrow's
と共に
Quad
必
Summit
ず成功させたいと思っています。このような共通認識のもと、
Based on this
本
common
日
awareness,
国際社会
today,
のさまざまな
frank
課
and
題に
useful
つい
discussion
て
took place
率直
on
か
matters
つ有意
of
義な意見交
international
換を
community.
行いました。まず、ロシアによる
First,
非道な侵
on
略に関
Russia's
して
egregious
力による
aggression,
一方的な
unilateral
現状
attempt to
変
change
更
the
の
status
試み
quo
は
by
い
force
かなる場
is
所であれ
totally
断じて
unacceptable,
許容できず
regardless of
G7 を
location.
はじめ
We
国際
reaffirm
社
to
会ととも
respond
に引
resolutely
き続き
together with the international
毅然として
community,
対
including
応することを
G7.
再確認いたしました。また、ウ
Also,
クライナの政府と国民を
confirmation was
全力
made
で
to
支
support
えていくことを確認
the
いたしました。
government and people of
こ
Ukraine.
うしたウクライナ情勢が
We
イ
also
ンド太
discussed
平
the
洋
impact
地
the
域
Ukraine
に
situation
及
could
ぼし
give
う
on
る
the
影響につい
Indo-Pacific.
ても議論をいたしました。中国
For
につ
China,
いては最近の
we
中
concur
国
to
海軍
monitor
の活動や
closely
中ロ
recent
両国に
activities
よ
of
る
Chinese
共同
Navy
軍
and
事
joint
演習
military
など
exercise
の
of
動
China
向を
and
注視する
Russia
とともに東シナ海
and
や
strongly
南シナ
oppose the
海にお
attempt
け
to
る
change status quo
力を
by
背景と
force
した現状変更の試みに強く
in
反対する
East
こと、
China Sea
そし
and
て
South
人権
China
問題を
Sea
含め
and
た
the Japan and the
中国を
United States to
めぐる
closely
諸課題
cooperate
へ
on
の対応に
responding
あたり
to China
引き続
related
き
issues,
日米で緊密に連携していくことなどで一致いたしました。また、
Also,
台湾に関する両国の
we
基本
affirmed
的な
that our
立
two
場に
countries'
変
basic
更はない
position
こ
on
とを
Taiwan
確認
remains to
し、
be unchanged
国際社会の
and
平和と繁栄に
underscored
不可欠な
the
要素である
importance of peace and
台湾
stability of
台
Taiwan
湾海峡
Straits,
の平和と
which is
安
an
定の重要
indispensable
性を
element for
強
peace
調
and
するととも
prosperity of
に、
international
両岸
community,
問題の
and
平和
called
的
for
解決を
peaceful
促しました。
resolution of straight
北朝
issue.
鮮については
On DPRK,
ICBM 級弾道ミ
sharing
サイルの
the
発射をは
serious
じめと
concern
す
over
る
nuclear and
核
missile
ミサイル
issues,
問題について深刻
including
な
the launch
懸
of
念を
ICBM
共有
class
した上で
ballistic missiles,
日米
Japan and the
日
United
米
States
韓
and Japan
で
US are
一層緊
okay
密に
to
連携し
cooperate
ていく
even
こと
more
を確
closely
認しました。
was affirmed.
拉致問題の即時解
Toward
決に向け
immediate
今
resolution
回
of abduction
私から
issue,
全
I
面的な
reiterated
理
my
解と協
request
力
for
を
full
改めて
understanding
求め
and
バイデ
cooperation.
ン大統領から
President
力強い
Biden
支持を
extended
い
his
ただき
strong
ました。
support.
バイデン大統領にはこの後、
After
拉
this,
致被害者の
President
ご家族
Biden
と
will be
面
meeting
会い
with
ただ
family
きます
members of the abductees.
このように地域の安全保障環境
At a
が
time when
一層
regional
厳しさを
security
増す中
environment is becoming more
バイデン大
severe,
統領とは
with
日米
President
同盟
Biden,
の
we
抑止力
reaffirmed the
対処
need
力
to
を
quickly
早急に
reinforce the
強
deterrence
化す
and
る
response
必要があるこ
capability
と
of
を再
Japan
確認
US
しました。
alliances.
私からは
I
日本
stated
の防衛力を
my
抜本的
determination
に
to
強化し、
fundamentally
その
reinforce
裏付
Japan's
けとなる
defense
防
capabilities
衛
and
費の
secure
相当
substantial
な増額
increase
を
of
確
its
保する
defense budget
決意を表明し、
needed to
バイデン大
effect
統
it.
領からはこれに対
President
する強い
Biden
支持を
strongly
いただき
supported
ました。
my determination.
また日米で
We also
安全保
concurred
障
to
防衛協
expand and
力を
deepen
拡
security
大
and defense
進化させてい
cooperation
くことで一致を
between
いたしました
Japan and the United
さらに
States.
バイデン大
Further,
統領からは
President
日
Biden
本の防衛への
reiterated his
コミッ
commitment
トメント
to
が
Japan's
改めて
defense
表明され今後も
and
拡
to
大抑
make sure
止が
that extended
揺るぎない
deterrence
も
will
ので
remain
あり続けることを
unwavering.
確保するため閣僚
We
レベルも
concur
含
to
め
keep in close
日米
touch,
の間で
including
一層
on the
緊密な
ministerial
意思
level
疎通を
between
行
our
ってい
two
くことで
countries.
一致をいたしました。加えて
In addition,
沖縄をは
to
じめとする
alleviate
地元
impact
の
on
負
local
担軽減
communities of
の観点か
Okinawa
ら
and others,
辺野古における
we
普天間
also
飛行場
concur to
代替施
steadfastly
設の
implement
建設を含む在日米軍
U.S.
再編を
forces in
着
Japan
実に
realignment,
実施してい
including
くこと
construction
で
in
も
Henoko
一致を
of
いたしました。
replacement facilities for
そ
Futenma
し
Air
て
Station.
核兵器を
And
めぐる
because
状況
situation
が
around
厳しさ
nuclear
を増し
weapons
て
are
いる
getting
今だから
severe,
こそ核軍
we
縮
also
不
concur
拡
to
散に関
advance
する
realistic
現
and
実的
effective efforts on
実
nuclear
効的な
disarmament
取り
and
組みを進め
non-proliferation
核兵器の
and
ない
work
世
toward
界に
the
向け
world
共に
without
取り組んでい
nuclear
くことでも
weapons.
一致をいたしました。米国によるインド太平洋地域の
Engagement in the
経済
Indo-Pacific
秩
by
序
the
へ
United
の
States.
関与がますます重要です。
and especially in
バイデン
the
大統領
economic
によ
order
る
is
イン
becoming
ド太
ever
平
more
洋経
important.
済枠組み
Japan
の
welcomes
立ち
the
上げを
launch
歓
of
迎
the
し、
Indo-Pacific
日
Economic
本は
Framework
これ
IPEF
に
by
参加を
President
し、
Biden
協力し
and
て
will
まいります。
participate and cooperate
その上
in
で、
this
日
initiative.
本としては
Having said
戦
so,
略的な観点から
Japan
米
hopes
国
to
が
see the
TPP に
United
復帰
States
することを
return
期待し
to
て
the
います。
TPP from a strategic
また、
perspective.
経済面での
Also,
日米の
in
協
order
力
to
を
expand
一層
and
拡
deepen
大進化
Japan-US
させるため、
economic cooperation,
本年
we
7月
agreed
に
to hold
閣僚
the
級の
ministerial
日米
level
経済政策
Japan-US
協議委員会、
Economic Policy
いわゆる経済
Consultative
版
Committee,
2プラ
the
ス2を
so-called
開催
Economic
することでも一致をいたしました。
coming July.
さらに最先端半導体
We
の開
concurred
発を
on
含む
cooperation
経
in
済安全
economic
保障分
security,
野の協力
including
や
the
宇宙
development of
などに
advanced
関する
semiconductors
具体的な
and
協力で
specific
も一致で
cooperation
きました。
regarding space.
特にロシアのウ
With
クライナ
Russia's
侵略
aggression
によ
of
り
Ukraine
エネルギ
severely
ー、
damaging
食料を
the situation over
めぐる
energy
状
and
況が
food,
大きく悪化している
we
ことに対
confirmed
し、
that we shall
G7 を
respond
はじめとす
through
る同志
coordination
国や
with the
国際機
G7
関と
and
連携して対
like-minded
処していく
nations,
ことで
as
一致
well
をいた
as
しました
with。international
こう
organizations.
した協力を通じて
Through such
持続可能で
Japan
包摂的
and
な
the United
経済社
States
会の実
hopes
現
to
のため
engage in
日米で
initiatives
イニシア
to
ティブを取ってい
realize
きたい
a
と思ってい
sustainable
ます。
and inclusive
私の
socio-economic
進める
environment.
新しい資本主義
Regarding
に
the new
関し、
form of
バイデン大統
capitalism
領か
which
ら
I
の
am proposing,
改めて
President
力強
Biden
い支持を
reconfirmed
いた
his
だきま
strong
した。
support.
中間層
By cooperating
重
with
視
President
の
Biden, who
政
is
策を掲げ
promoting
る
policies
バイ
that
デン大
focus
統
on
領
the
と
middle
協力
class,
して 主要国
We hope
に
to create
共通する
a
経済
major
政策の
global
大きな
trend
潮流を
of
作っていきたいと
common
思ってい
economic
ます。
policies among
ま
major
た、
countries.
国際保険やがん
We
研
also
究、気
exchanged
候変動、
views on global
人
health,
権、民
cancer
主主義
research,
の保
climate
護、
change,
促進な
protection
ど、
and promotion of
地
human
球
rights
規
and
模
democracy
課題
and
へ
other
の
global
対応についても
challenges,
意見交換をし、
and
引き続
agreed
き
that our two
日米
countries
で
should
国際
lead
社会の取り
efforts
組み
of
を
the
主導してい
international
くことで
community
一致をい
in
たしまし
such
た。
areas.
さらに私からは国際社会
I
の
express
平和
the
と
necessity
安
to
全に
reform and
主要な責
strengthen
任を負
the
う
United
安保
Nations,
理を含め
including the
国
Security
連の
Council,
改革と
which bears
強化
an
の必要
important
性を述べ
responsibility for the peace
バイデン
and
大統
security
領
of
か
the
ら
international
賛意が
community
示されました。
and gained
またバイデ
President
ン大統領
Biden's
から
support.
改革
The
された
President
安
stated
保理に
that the
おい
United
て
States
日本
will
が常
support
任理事国
Japan
になることを
becoming a
支持する
permanent
との
member of
表
a
明がありまし
reformed
た。
Security Council.
太平洋は
The Pacific Ocean
日米を
does
分
not
かつ
separate
もので
Japan
はな
and
く
the United
むしろ
States.
両
Rather,
者を
it
つなぐも
unites
ので
us.
あるとの
Those are the
ケネディ
words
大統領
delivered by
が
President
池
Kennedy
田総
to
理に
Prime
送っ
Minister
た言葉
Ikeda,
は今日一
which
層重みを増してい
resonate
ます
with。amplified weight in today's
私からは
context.
自由で
I
開かれた
conveyed the
インド太
importance
平洋
of
促進に
human
向けた
resources
人
development
材育
and
成や
people-to-people
交流が
exchange
重要で
towards
あ
a
ること
free
を
and
お
open
伝え
Indo
し、
Pacific,
バイデン大統領
and
から
President
賛意が
Biden
示されました。
concurred.
そして日本は
Japan
来年
will hold
G7
the
の議長
presidency
国を
of the
務めます。
G7 next year.
世界が
As
ウ
the
クライナ
world
侵略、
faces
大量破
an
壊兵器の使用
unprecedented
リスク
challenge
の高ま
caused
り
by
とい
Russia's
う
aggression of
未
Ukraine
曾有の
and the
危
heightened
機に
risk
直面し
of
ている
use of
中、
weapons of mass
来年
destruction.
の
At
G7 サミ
next
ットでは
year's G7
武
summit,
力侵略
I
も
hope we can
核兵
demonstrate
器に
the
よる
will
脅
of
か
the
しも
G7
国際秩
to
序の転
resolutely
覆の
reject
試みも
aggression by
断
force,
固として
threat by
拒否す
nuclear
るとい
weapons,
う
and attempts
G7 の意
to
思を
overturn the
歴史に残る
international
重み
order
を持って
with a
示したい
strength
と
that
考
will
えてい
make
ま
a
す。
mark in history.
唯一の戦争
As
被
the
爆
Prime
国で
Minister
ある
of
日
Japan, the
本の
only
総理
country to
大臣
have
とし
ever
て
suffered atomic
私は
bombings,
広島
I
ほど
believe
平和へ
there
の
is
コミット
no
メントを
other
示すのに
venue
ふさわ
as
しい場所はない
fitting
と
as
考えていま
Hiroshima
す。
to demonstrate our
核兵
commitment
器
to
の
peace.
惨禍を
I hope
人類が二度
That
と
we
起こ
can
さな
vow
い
to the
と
world
の
that
誓いを
mankind will
世界に
never
示
cause
し
the
バイデン
catastrophe
大統領を
brought about
はじ
by
め
nuclear weapons,
G7 首脳ととも
that
に
President
平和
Biden
の
and
モニ
other
ュメントの
leaders
前
of the
で
G7
平和
will
と世界
together
秩序と価
confirm
値観
in
を
front of the
守るた
Peace
めに
Memorial
結束
our
してい
solidarity
くことを
to defend
確認した
peace,
いと
global
思って
order,
います。
and values.
私はバイデン
I
大統領
explained such
にも
plans to
こう
the
した
President,
考え方を伝え、来年の
and
G7 サミットを
we reaffirmed
広島で
that
開催
next year's
し、その
G7
成功に向
summit
け
will be
て
held in
共に取り
Hiroshima
組んでいくことを
and that
確
we shall
認し
work
ました。
together for its success.
本日我々は
Today,
今回の会談の成果として
As an
共
outcome
同
of our
声
meeting,
明
we
を
decided
発出す
to
ること
issue
に
a
なりました。
joint statement.
この声明は
This
現下
statement
のウクライ
is
ナ
the
情勢
joint
や
strategy of
インド
Japan
太
and
平
the
洋
United
の
States
戦略的
as we
重要
keep in
性
mind
を
the
念
current
頭に置
situation
き
in
つつ
Ukraine
自由
and
で
the
開かれた
strategic
国際
importance
秩序の
of the
維持発
Indo-Pacific
展を目
and
指す
aim to
日米の
uphold and
共同
develop a
戦略
free
です。
and open international order.
ポスト冷戦時代の
Under the
終焉
current
とも言え
situation
る
of
現
international
下の
affairs,
国際情
which
勢に
may
お
be
いて
described
日
as
米
the
同盟
end
の
of the
深化が
post-Cold
かつてな
War
く
era,
問われてい
the
ます
true。value of the Japan-U.S. alliance
自由で
is
開
being
かれた
tested
インド
more
太平洋
stringently
の
than
実
ever
現
before
そして
in order to
自
realize a
由で
free
開
and
かれ
open
た
Indo-Pacific
ルールに
and
基
to
づ
establish a
く
free
国
and
際
open
秩序の
rules-based
構築
international
に
order,
日米は
Japan and the
不退
United
転の
States
決意で
will
取り
engage
組ん
in
でいき
utmost
ます。
efforts with
引き
irreversible
続き
resolve. I
バイ
look
デン大
forward to
統領
furthering
と
our
緊密
partnership
に
with
連携していく
President
ことを
Biden.
楽しみにしています。ジョー、ありがとうございます。 とうございました。
Thank you, Joe.
ありがとうございました。続き
Thank
ま
you
して、
very much.
米国バイデン大
I
統
now
領か
would
ら
like to
ご
give
発
the
言をいた
floor
だきます
to President Biden of the
Thank
United
you
States
very
of
much,
America.
Prime Minister, for that warm welcome you've given me here in Japan. In recent years, the alliance between Japan and the United States has grown stronger, deeper, and more capable as we work together to take on the challenges just as important as the opportunities of a rapidly changing world. A great example of this, we viewed Japan's lunar rover just coming out here before, after lunch. A symbol of how our space cooperation is taking off, looking toward the moon and to Mars. And I'm excited. I'm excited the work we'll do together on the Gateway Station around the moon, and look forward to the first Japanese astronaut joining us in the mission to the lunar surface under the Artemis program. And tomorrow, we're going to meet with our fellow Quad partners, Australia and India, for our 4th Leaders Summit and our 2nd time meeting together in person. The Quad is showing the world that cooperation among democracies can get big things done, and I'm grateful for your leadership. And thank you for bringing us all together again to keep driving our progress as we advance a positive vision for the future of the Indo-Pacific region. Today, we made several commitments to further increase our bilateral cooperation and to work together to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific that creates opportunity and prosperity for all the people in the region. Through our comprehensive and resilience partnership, which we announced last year, we're in a situation now that we've invested our cooperation to spur innovation while delivering concrete progress for our people. Promoting a secure 5G network, improving internet connectivity for our partners in the region, improving critical infrastructure, and strengthening supply chain resilience, particularly on semiconductors, batteries, and critical minerals. Responding to COVID-19 and building a greater health security and stronger health system is also part of the future. And helping the world prepare for the next pandemic with our new CDC regional office right here in Japan. Cooperating on clean energy and decarbonization to tackle the climate crisis. And after this, the United States and Japan, together with 11 other nations, will be launching the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. This framework is a commitment to working with our close friends and partners in the region on challenges that matter most to ensuring economic competitiveness in the 21st century, by improving security and trust in the digital economy, protecting workers, strengthening supply chains, and tackling corruption that robs nations of their ability to serve their citizens. You know, as the two largest democracies, the two largest economies in the democratic world, the United States and Japan are demonstrating the strength of democracies in action. Our cooperation has been particularly vital in organizing the global response to hold Putin accountable for his brutal war in Ukraine and his attack on the norms and principles that are the foundation of our international order. Mr. Prime Minister, you've been outstanding. You've been an outstanding partner throughout this crisis. And our unity in the G7 to impose economic costs on Russia and support the people of Ukraine is sending a strong message about our willingness to defend a rule-based international order. And I'm looking forward to continuing our discussions at the upcoming G7 summit in Germany and returning to Japan next year in 2023 for the G7 summit. And I welcome the Prime Minister's announcement the G7 summit will take place in his hometown of Hiroshima. Today, we also discuss ways to continue to strengthen our security cooperation. The United States remains fully committed to Japan's defense, and we welcome the opportunity to work more closely together in an increasingly challenging security environment. I applaud Prime Minister Kishida's determination to strengthen Japanese defense capabilities as well. A strong Japan and a strong U.S.-Japan alliance is a force for good in the region. I support the peace and stability that's going to continue and we hope increase across the Taiwan Straits, promote freedom of navigation in the East and South China Seas, and to deter the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. So thank you again, Mr. Prime Minister, for your partnership and your friendship. The alliance between our two countries is stronger than it's ever been, and it's as important as it has ever been. I'm looking forward to exploring even more ways that our relationship will help move us toward a future that benefits all people. So thank you very much, Mr. President, and I really, truly appreciate your hospitality.
ありがとうございました。それでは
Thank
こ
you
れ
very
から
much.
プレスの皆様からのご質問
We
を
will
お受け
now
いたします。
accept
質問は日本
questions
側
from
の
the
記者の
press.
方、続いてアメリカ側の記者の
First,
方からお願いいた
Japanese
します。
journalist to be
質
followed
問のあ
by
る方は
U.S.
挙手をいただ
journalist.
いた
That will
後、
be the
日本
order
側
of
の
the
記者の
questions.
方
Those
は
of you who
私
have
から
a question,
指名し、アメリカの
please
記
raise
者
your
の
hand.
方は
For
バイデン
Japanese
大統領から
journalists,
指名をして
I
いた
will
だきます。
appoint the journalist,
指名され
and
た方はお
U.S.
近くの
journalists
ス
will
タン
be
ドマイクの
appointed
前
by
に進んで
President
て、
Biden.
所属と名前を
Please
名乗
come
っ
to
てから
the
質問を
closest
行ってくだ
microphone,
さい。質問
identify
は簡潔に
yourself
お願
and
いい
your
たします。
affiliation,
な
and
お、
please be
感染
brief
予防の
and
観点
clear
から質問
in
さ
your
れる際の
questions.
マスクの着
Due
用をお
to
願いいたします。
infection prevention,
そ
please
れでは
keep
日
your
本
facial
側の記
masks
者の方
when
から
you
ご質
deliver
問
your
をお受
question.
けい
Now,
たします。
Japanese
それ
journalists,
で
are
は、
there any
一番の
questions?
前の、
The
山
third
本さん。
row, Yamamoto-san.
TV 朝日の山本です。
Asahi, my
総
name
理
is
バイデン大
Yamamoto.
統領よろしくお願いします。
Prime
まず
Minister,
総理にお
President
伺いします。
Biden,
ロシアによる
thank
ウ
you
クライ
very
ナ
much.
侵攻を踏まえ、
First,
総理
Prime
はこれまで
Minister,
も
with
欧
the
州と
Russian
アジア
aggression
の安
of
全保障
Ukraine,
は切り離
Prime
すことはで
Minister,
きないと
you've
の
been
考えを
saying
示してい
that
ます。
security of Europe and
そうした
security
中
of
で
the
今回の会談で
Indo-Pacific
は
are
特に中
inseparable.
国への対応に
In
ついて
today's meeting,
台湾
did
海
you
峡
talk
をめ
about
ぐる現在の
response
情
to
勢を
China?
どのよう
How
に
did
分
you
析したのでしょ
analyze
う
the
か。
current status
ま
of
た
the
仮に危
cross-strait
機が起こった
relations?
際にアメ
Did
リ
the
カ側は
Japanese
どの
side
ように対応すると説明
or
があり、
U.S. side
また日本側に
explained
対してはですね、
how U.S.
ど
would
のような
respond
要
in
望があったので
times
しょうか。
of contingency?
その上
What
で
was the
総理から
request
は
from the
日
U.S.
本
side
側の対応
regarding
について
Japanese
防衛費の
response
増額
to
や
contingency
敵
in
基地攻撃能力の
cross-straits
保有などを含め
situation?
具
Did you
体的に
explain
どのような
the
説明を
defense
したのでしょ
budget
うか。
increase
よろしくお
or
願いします。
enemy-based strike capability? What did you explain in that context, Prime Minister?
Well, thank you for your
まず
question.
今回の
First of all,
首脳会談において
at
は、
today's
ご指
summit
摘の
meeting,
台湾海峡
as
情勢に
regards
ついて
Taiwan
は、
Strait issue
台
that you
湾に関す
asked,
る両国の
we can
基本的な立場には
confirm
変更がないこ
that
とを
basic
確認し、
stances of
そ
two
して国際
countries
社会
on Taiwan
の
remains to be
安全
unchanged
と繁栄
and
に
underscore the importance of
不
peace
可
and
欠な要素
stability
で
of
ある
Taiwan
台湾
Strait,
海峡の
which is
平和
an
と安定の
indispensable
重要
element
性
for
を強
security
調
and
するととも
prosperity
に、
of international
両岸問
community
題
and
の
called
平和的
upon
解決
peaceful
を促
resolution
し
of
た、こうした内容のものであり
cross-strait
ました。
issues.
地域の
Well, in the
安全保
region,
障環境、
security-related
一層厳しさを増
environment
す
is
中にあって
getting severer.
今回のロシアによる
Unilateral
ウ
attempt
クライ
to
ナ侵
change
略のよう
status
な
quo by
力
force,
によ
like
る
Russia's
一
aggression
方的な
against
この
Ukraine
現状
this
変更
time,
の試み
should
を
never be
インド太平
tolerated
洋、
in
とりわけアジ
Indo-Pacific,
ア、東アジア
above
で
all
許さぬよう
in East
日米同盟の
Asia.
さらなる強化
It's
が不可欠
indispensable
だと考
to
え
further
ます。
strengthen
こう
Japan-US
した共
alliance.
通認識
Based
の
on
下
this
で、
shared
私の方
awareness,
からは
I have
日本の
said
防衛
that
力の抜本的な強化を行う。そしてその裏付け
fundamentally
となる
reinforce Japan's
防衛
defense
費の
capability,
相
and
当
I
な
stated
増
my
額を
determination
確
to
保する。
fundamentally
こうした
reinforce Japan's
決
defense
意を述べ
capabilities
ま
and
した。
secure
それ
substantial
に対して
increase
バイ
of
デン
its
大統
defense
領から
budget
強
needed
い支持を
to
いただ
effect
い
it,
た。
and
こういっ
President
たやり
Biden
取りがあり
strongly
ました。
supported by
また
determination.
私の方からは、
And
い
also
わゆる
from
この
myself,
反撃能力を
I have said that
含めて
inclusive what is
あらゆ
called
る
enemy
選
based
択肢
strike
を
capability.
排除しない。
All the options will
こう
be
した旨
there,
も
not to
述べた
exclude
次
any
第
one
で
of
す。
them, and this is
イ
what
ン
I
ド太
said
平洋、
to
そ
President.
して国
In
際社会の
Indo-Pacific
平和と
region,
繁
as
栄
well as to
の
ensure
確保のため
the
に、
peace
その
and
基盤である
prosperity
この
of the
日米
international
同盟の一
community.
層の
The
強化に向
basis
けて、
is the
引き続き
cornerstone of which is
日米
Japan-US
で緊
alliance,
密に
and toward the
連
further
携して
strengthening
い
of
き
the
たいと
alliance,
考
we
え
like
て
to
いま
remain in
す。
close coordination
以上です。
between Japan and the United States. Thank you.
ありがとうございます。続きまして、
Thank you very much.
To ask you about the economy. During your trip here to Asia, you've promoted the investments by Samsung and Hyundai, but back home in the United States, Americans are dealing with record high inflation. The Fed has raised interest rates to try to address those issues, and they're also just enormously high high gas prices. Given the cross currents of the economy right now, the war in Ukraine, the China lockdowns that we've seen, should Americans be prepared for a recession? In your view, is a recession in the United States inevitable?
No.
Why not?
Look, you're talking about the significant progress we've made in making sure We don't have supply chain backups. About the 8,000 jobs that Hyundai is going to be bringing to Georgia, 3,000 jobs to Texas from Samsung, $17 billion investment. Toyota, 1,700 jobs in North Carolina on battery technology. The situation where we've created over 8 million new jobs, where unemployment's down to 3.6%, and so on and so forth, as if they're a problem. Imagine where we'd be with Putin's tax and the war in Ukraine had we not made that enormous progress. Where our GDP is going to grow faster than China's for the first time in 40 years. Now, does that mean we don't have problems? We do. We have problems that the rest of the world has, but less consequential than the rest of the world has them because of our internal growth and strength. Here's the situation. And when it comes to the gas prices, we're going through an incredible transition that is taking place that, God willing, when it's over, will be stronger and the world will be stronger and less reliant on fossil fuels when this is over. You see what Europe is doing relative to the importation of Russian gas. You see what, anyway, I won't go through it all, but, and what I've been able to do to keep it from getting even worse, and it's bad. The price of gas at the pump is something that I told you, heard me say before, would be a matter of great discussion at my kitchen table when I was a kid growing up. It's affecting a lot of families. But we have released over 257,000 million barrels of oil, I should say, us and the rest of the world we're convinced to get involved. It's helped, but it's not been enough. We also find ourselves in a situation where we have food shortages. Food shortages because of Ukraine. There are literally millions of bushels of of grain being held up in Ukraine that would fundamentally impact positively on the market in terms of bringing down food prices across the board. So we're finding ourselves in a position where we're working very hard with American farmers and American agricultural products to provide more fertilizer and a whole range of things. This is going to be a haul. This is going to take some time. But in the meantime, it seems to me the best thing I can do, in addition to try to get the Middle Eastern countries, including OPEC, to raise their production of oil and move along that route, is to see to it that we continue to grow our economy, create jobs. And the other thing is, there's a second way. I know you don't want to talk about, people don't want to talk about it right now, and I won't take up the time, but there's a second way to impact on inflation in terms of people's daily cost. If you're able to have child care at 7% of your income, if you're able to be in a position where we were able to provide for a tax cut for middle-class people and working-class people, et cetera, all those things would be very helpful. But when we have a 50-50 Senate, it means we have 50 presidents. And I'm having a little trouble getting some of these things passed. But we're not going to give up. We're going to keep pushing.
Could I just follow you on one point? Secretary Yellen said recently that some of the tariffs on Chinese imports impose more harm on consumers and businesses and aren't very strategic. Do you share that view, and are you considering taking down some of those tariffs?
I'm talking with the Secretary when we get home. I am considering it. We did not impose any of those tariffs. They were imposed by the last administration, and they're under consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Prime Minister Kishida, if I may, sir, we're going to be hearing more about this Indo-Pacific Economic Forum today. What message do you hope that it sends to China in the global market? And do you see this as a potential precursor to some type of trade pact, given the political situation in the United States dealing with TPP?
はい、まず、IPEF についてですが、アメリカがこのインド太平洋地域に対して、経済的な面からも深い関心を示し、関与をしようという姿勢を示していること、このことについては、我が国としても高く評価をしています。TPP については、ぜひアメリカの復帰を 期待したいと思い
We
ますが、
are truly hoping
そ
for
の
return of the
中に
United
あっ
States.
ても、この IPEF の
Even
立ち上げに向
with
けて議
the
論を
TPP,
進
it's
めようとする
important
アメリカの姿勢
that we
は
proceed
我
with
が国は歓
discussions
迎い
on
たしますし、
IPEF, and
我が国も
that
しっかり参加を
attitude
して
of
い
the
きたい、
United States
この
is
ように思っています。
wholeheartedly
そ
welcomed
して
by
中
the
国
Japanese government, and we would
が
like to support
今
the
現在
U.S.
もこのイン
initiative.
ド太平洋地域において
China
大きな経
right
済
now
的な
in
プ
the
レゼンスを
Indo-Pacific
示している。
region
これは
is
その通り
demonstrating
であります
significant
が、
economic
しか
presence.
し
That's
その
true.
中身がや
But
はり問題だと思い
look
ます。
into the substance
国
of
際
their
的なルー
presence.
ルに従
Are
って、
they abiding by
そ
international
して、
rules?
開発金融等にお
What
い
about
ても
development finance?
持続可能なこ
Are
の
they
取り組みを進めて
caring
もらわな
about
ければいけない。
sustainable
やはり
initiatives?
大国と
They
し
have
て
to do
大
that
きな
because
責
they
任を
are a
こ
major
の経済
power.
面からも
They
この
have
地域においてし
significant
っかり果たして
responsibility,
もらわなけ
even
れば
in the
ならない。
economic field.
このように
They have
思
to
いま
live
す。
up to that
ぜひ
responsibility.
日本も米国とともに協力しながら
Japan will cooperate with the
中国に
United
対して
States
こうした
and vis-a-vis China,
国際的なルールに従った責任を果た
persuade
し
them
てもらうよ
to
う
live up to
し
their
っかり働きかけを
responsibilities
行っていく、こういった
abide
姿勢
by
は大
international
事である
rules.
と
And
思
we
ってい
think
ま
that
す。
such attitude is very important. Thank you.
それでは再び日本側の記者の方から質
So
問
once
を
again,
お
we
受けい
receive
たします。そ
question from the
れでは挙
Japanese
手をどうぞ。
reporter. Please raise your
朝日の
hand.
池津さん。
池住さん。
朝日新聞の池尻と申します。
池尻 from 朝日
岸田総理、
newspaper.
バイデン大統
Prime
領、よろし
Minister
くお願いいたします。
Kishida,
先
President
ほどの質問
Biden,
にもあ
nice
り
to
ました
meet
が、
you.
IPEF についてお聞きし
I
たい
have
と
a
思います。
question once again about
IPEF は
IPEF.
TPP との枠組みとは異なっ
It
て、
is said that
ASEAN 加盟
IPEF
国の
is
中に
different
は
from the
メリットが
framework
少
of
ないとの見
TPP,
方もあ
and
り
some
ます
ASEAN members are saying that
IPEF は
there is
実効
less
性のあるも
merit
のになる
there,
のか、
benefit.
また実効性の確
Would
保に
the
向けて、
IPEF
日
be
本はどのよう
effective
な役割を
framework
果たす
or
考え
in
る
order
の
to
か、
ensure
岸
the
田総理教えてく
effectiveness
だ
for
さい。
IPEF? What
ま
is the
た、
role that
バイデン大
Japan
統
will
領
be
もですね、
playing?
TPP へ
Prime
の
Minister
復帰をしたい
Kishida.
という言葉がありました
And
けれども、
also,
今日ど
there
のよ
was
うに呼びかけられ、
expectations
どのような回答
expressed
があったのか
for
も教え
United
てください。
States to come back to
はい
TPP. What was the
まず
response you received?
IPEF につい
First
て
of
で
all,
す
on
が、
IPEF,
バイデン大統領の
under
リーダーシ
the
ップの下
leadership
で
of President Biden,
この後正式に立ち
shortly
上が
after
る
this press
この予
conference,
定になってい
there
ます。
will be
そう
official
し
launch
た
of IPEF. That's the
式
plan.
典が予定をされています。
Such ceremony
先ほ
is
ども申し上げ
slated
ま
to
し
take
たが、
place.
これは
I said this
米
before,
国の
but
このインド太平洋地域への
this
積極
is
的なコ
a
ミットメントを
demonstration of
示
the
す
positive
もの
commitment of the United
として
States to the
歓迎
Indo-Pacific.
し支持をいたし
Japan
ます。
welcomes such
その記念
steps,
式
and we
典、
are
立ち上
in
げ
full
式典にも
support.
私もバイデン大統領と
I'm
と
going
も
to
に
join President
出席を
Biden
し
to
たい
participate
と
in
思って
the
い
inauguration
ます。
ceremony.
そしてこの IPEF を通じて、インド太平洋地域における持続
It's
可能
important
で、
to
そして
realize
包摂的な
sustainable
経済成
and
長を実現
inclusive
していくこ
economic
とが
growth
重
in the
要です。
Indo-Pacific.
でご質問の中で、具体的な
In your question, you asked about
実利が少ないのではないかという指摘があるという話で
concern
はあ
of
り
some
ますが、
countries
しかし、
who may think
こ
that
の
there
米
is
国はも
very
ちろん、
little
この ASEAN 諸
merit or
国
advantage to them.
をはじめとする
We're going
地域
to
の
discuss
パー
various
トナー
matters
と
not
緊密に
only
議
with the
論をし
United
ながら、
States, but
これ
regional
共に具体
partners,
的な成果
including the
を
ASEAN
生み出し
countries,
ていく、
in
こ
order
うした
to
協
jointly
力
deliver
の議論、
concrete
前向き
results.
な協力の議論
So
を
this
こうした
is
場を通じて行
a
うこ
venue
とが
to
大事であ
engage
り、
in
そういっ
positive
た
discussion for
取り組みによっ
cooperation.
て具体的
And
な
through
こ
such
の
initiatives,
結果、実利
we
にも
want
つ
to
なげていくことが
deliver
できる
concrete
と
and
考
specific
えていま
results,
す。
and that will serve as
そして
specific
TPP に
and
ついて
actual
ご質問がありました。
advantage or merit for those
米国
countries.
による
You
イン
asked
ド
the
太
question on
平洋
TPP.
地域のこの国際秩序、この
From
経
the
済面か
strategic
ら
perspective
も
of U.S.
関与して
engagement in
もら
the
いたいと
international
い
order
う
of
戦
the
略的な観
Indo-Pacific,
点から
we want
米
the
国の
United States to be
TPP
engaged
復
from
帰
the
が我が
economic
国としては
perspective as
望ましい
well.
という立
So
場、こ
our
れは
position
変
remains
わることはあ
unchanged.
りませ
We
ん。
think it's desirable for the United United States to return to
ぜ
the
ひ
TPP.
TPP 復帰を我が国としては
So,
合わせて期待しているということ
Japan
について
hopes
は
to see
今回
Japan
の会談の中
to
でも
see U.S. come
直
back
接
to the
申
TPP,
し上
and
げ
during the
た
meeting,
とこ
I
ろで
directly
あります。
communicated our hopes as
それ以
such
上
to the
の
President.
詳しいやり取りは外交上のや
I
り取
will
りですから
not
この場で
make
は
any
控え
further
ます。以上
detailed
です。
comments since it pertains to
それでは
diplomatic
最後に
exchanges.
再びアメリカ側の記者の方から質問を受けいた
I
します。
invite
どうぞ
questions from the U.S. press.
Inez. Andrew.
Tight quarters. Thank you so much. I have a question for the Prime Minister, but first to you, Mr. President. We're already dealing with one global pandemic, and you said yesterday that monkeypox is something that everyone should be concerned about. There are a few confirmed cases in the U.S., and some countries are imposing 21-day quarantines for people who are infected or even in some cases just exposed. Should Americans expect something similar?
No, I don't think so. Look, we've had this monkeypox in the larger numbers in the past, number one. Number two, we have vaccines to take care of it. Number three, there is, thus far, there doesn't seem to be a need for any kind of extra effort beyond what's going on. And so I just don't think it rises to the level of the kind of concern that existed with COVID-19 and the smallpox vaccine works for it. So, but I think people should be careful.
Do you think that the U.S. has enough smallpox vaccine stockpiled?
I think we do have enough to deal with the likelihood of the problem.
And Mr. Prime Minister, can you tell us how Japan would respond if China were to invade or try to take over Taiwan? And how do you hope that the U.S. would respond if that were to happen? And Mr. President, if you could tell us how the U.S. is prepared to respond, we would appreciate it.
はい、台湾については、今回の首脳会談の中でも、議論となりました。台湾海峡の情勢は、この台湾に関する両国の基本的な立場は変更がない。The
fundamental position of Japan and the United States was reaffirmed. There is no change. And we asserted the importance of peace and stability of the Taiwan Straits, which is fundamental to international order, and the peaceful resolution of the Straits issue should be pursued. We reconfirmed that position. Now, in Asia, we are against any unilateral attempt to change status quo by force in Asia. All the more so because of such position regarding the situation in Ukraine. We think that unilateral attempt to change status quo is impermissible. That's why we're cooperating with the international cooperation, and we decided to participate in the strong sanctions, and we are providing humanitarian assistance. And in Asia as well, peace and stability must be upheld and defended. And in order to defend peace and stability in Asia, we will drastically upgrade and strengthen our defense capability. And the United States is the only ally for Japan. And Japan-US alliance is thus very, very important. We have to strengthen this alliance to defend peace and stability of the region. That's our belief. And in so doing, extended deterrence and response by the United States must be reliable. We have full confidence in response by the United States, including extended deterrence and strengthening of Japan-US alliance is very important, and we truly hope that as many members of the general public will have even deeper confidence on this alliance, so that that in turn will lead to regional peace and stability. And I look forward to cooperating with President Biden to that end.
Our policy toward Taiwan has not changed at all. We remain committed to supporting the peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits and ensuring that there is no unilateral change to the status quo. I would add that one of the reasons why it's so important that Putin pay a dear price for his barbarism in Ukraine. The idea that on your station today and every other station in America, they're showing bombings of every school, no military purpose, schools, hospitals, daycare centers, all the things, museums, blowing up all the museums. I believe what Putin is attempting to do is eliminate the identity of Ukraine. The identity. He can't occupy it, but he can try to destroy its identity. And the reason I bother to mention that is he has to pay, and Russia has to pay a long-term price for that in terms of the sanctions that have been imposed. And the reason I bother to say this, not just about Ukraine. If, in fact, after all he's done, there's a rapprochement met between between the Ukrainians and Russia, and these sanctions are not continued to be sustained in many ways, then what signal does that send to China about the cost of attempting to take Taiwan by force? They're already flirting with danger right now by flying so close and all the maneuvers that are undertaken. But the United States is committed. We've made a commitment. We support the one China policy. We support all that we've done in the past. But that does not mean that China has the ability, the jurisdiction to go in and use force to take over Taiwan. So we stand firmly with Japan and with other nations not to let that happen. And my expectation is it will not happen. It will not be attempted. And my expectation is a lot of it depends upon just how strongly the world makes clear that that kind of action is going to result in long-term disapprobation by the rest of the community.
Very quickly, you didn't want to get involved in the Ukraine conflict militarily for obvious reasons. Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are?
That's the commitment we made. That's the commitment we made. We are not, look, here's the situation. We agree with a one China policy. We've signed on to it and all the attendant agreements made from there. But the idea that it can be taken by force, just taken by force, is just not appropriate. It will dislocate the entire region and be another action similar to what happened in Ukraine. And so it's a burden that is even stronger. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. President.
ありがとうございます。それでは以上を
Thank you
も
very
ちまし
much.
て北
This
総理
will
と
be the
バイデン
end
大
of
統領
the
によ
joint
る
press
日米首脳
conference
共同
by
記者
Prime
会見を終
Minister
了いたします。
Kishida
ご協
and
力に感謝
President
申し上げ
Biden.
ます。
Thank you
岸田
very
総理
much
及び
for
バイ
your
デン大
cooperation.
統領が退出され
The
るま
Prime
で
Minister
記
and
者の皆
President
様
will
は
leave the
係員
room
が誘導
first.
するまで着席のまま
Journalists
でお待ち
are
ください。
requested to remain seated as the leaders leave the room until you are shown outside the room by the staff. Please remain seated. To the journalists, please remain seated.